Hey, what's going on, guys? That was my very first flight with the 95 GT, and I gotta say I was pleasantly surprised with the way that it flew. And this was straight out of the box, no changes to the PIDs. All I had to do was bind my radio to the XM receiver, and it flew just the way that I wanted it. Alright, let's open her up and take a look at what's inside. Skip this for now. There's some good information in here, especially if you're new and have never messed around with Betaflight. It shows you step-by-step instructions, and it also details a basic tune for the PIDs. So definitely take a look through that. First up, we got a micro USB cable and a 2-cell LiPo with 35C discharge, which should work fine with the 95 GT. I believe this is for connecting a PWM receiver to the flight controller, which is strange that it's included because I received the FreeSky XM version. Well, it's always nice to have extra wires. Next up are some 1935 propellers and 6mm M2 screws. You get two sets of prop which come in white and transparent yellow. They were separated in a weird way. They put all the left-hand props in one bag and the right hand in the other, so you have to open up both baggies to get the full set. I actually didn't realize this until after I installed all four of the props and was pretty much getting ready to go out the door to go flying. It's a good thing I checked. And here we have some extra rubber bands for the battery and also a prop remover. Got some more screws here. I think in total, in my box anyways, there was 16 screws. And some prop guards. And I don't know what these are. Some more screws and some washers. Well, I didn't know what the washers were for, but like always, I just dive right in. I put 4 of them on the bottom of the motors and realized that there's only 8 washers. I'm gonna take a wild guess here and say that the screws are for the top, and just basically so that it doesn't let the screws touch the windings. And last but not least, the 95 GT. If you already have a receiver, you can choose to get the ARF version, but I would actually suggest getting one of the BNF models, as there's a good chance the radio you use will work with one of the offered BNF models. Plus, you have something that's already soldered up and pretty much ready to fly as soon as you get it. I went with FrSky, and it comes with a great little XM receiver. It's kind of hard to see this, but the receiver's antenna, it's super thin and it feels like it's gonna rip very easily. I wish they would use a thicker gauge wire for the antenna, and on top of that, the most important part of the antenna is actually that last 32mm section, and it should be as straight as possible. Otherwise, you'll see a big loss in performance. It's not as important on this because it's a micro, and you're probably not going to be flying a great enough distance for it to even matter. In fact, I'm willing to bet that you'll lose your video's reception long before you lose your radio's connection. The XM is a great little receiver. It offers up to 16 channels in S-Bus and operates on 3.5 all the way up to 10 volts. Max range on this one is rated at greater than 600 meters, but I doubt anyone's going to be going that far on a micro. Before you even think about going that far, I would suggest upgrading the VTX, as this is going to be your limiting factor. But even then, I probably would advise against this, as your battery life is limited to just 4 to 5 minutes. A flight like that would be quite the risk. Alright, next up, let's take a look at these motors. The motors are King Kong branded 1103s, and they're rated at 7800 kV, which look to be quite common in this size quad. I'm in the middle of testing the awesome Q95, and they use similar motors, just have a lower kV. Anyways, these motors combined with the included 3-bladed props provide plenty of power. I was able to easily flip and roll just as I would in a larger size quad. After my first flight, I was very happy with the way that it performed. To get an idea of how the 95 GT is gonna perform, here's some line of sight footage. Okay, yeah, this thing's got plenty of power. Didn't take much effort to fly over this tree. I think that was only about 70% throttle right there. This thing is awesome. I feel very comfortable flying this one. I can go full throttle and not worry about it browning out. Even with a low C battery, the included battery is a 2-cell 350 mAh 35C LiPo, so it's not the best performance wise, but you wouldn't be able to tell because this thing still flies great. Keep in mind I'm not referring to the 95 GT with the following statement. I think the number one issue I've had when flying micros is the battery. Normally these micros come with a crappy battery. It's crazy. They put all this performance into such an incredible machine, yet they skimp out on the battery. Pretty ludicrous if you ask me. When it comes down to micros, carbon fiber is not always an advantage. Because weight is such an important factor, I can understand the reasoning behind wanting to use carbon fiber. Most of the time, microquads will have a main plate that measures just 2 millimeters thick, and then they'll have other pieces like the top plate or a camera enclosure at just 1.5 millimeters thick. Because these micros use such thin carbon fiber plates, sometimes even a moderate crash ends up snapping an arm or a camera enclosure. I have a pile of damaged micros to prove it. Now, I'm not saying I know how to engineer a more durable micro, but from my experience, I've noticed that micros with plastic thrown into the mix seem to fare much better in crashes. I'm sure with the way microquads have blown up, we're going to be seeing even more advanced tech being introduced into literally every facet of these quadcopters. Maybe one day, we'll see a frame that's nearly indestructible. Okay, so after flying this thing around for a couple of weeks, I'm very happy with the way that it performs, and this is the way that it performs straight out of the box. So for those who don't want to mess with Betaflight, this is the micro for you. The way it flies is perfectly suited to the way that I like it, and I really didn't have to change a thing. Its flight characteristics are similar to the way a larger size mini quad feels, and it's got plenty of power to be able to do any tricks you throw at it. Even though it doesn't have all the bells and whistles other micros might have, I'm still very happy with it, and I highly recommend this to anyone that's in the market for a micro. That's gonna be it for this one. I'm gonna leave this clip running until I crash at the end, but as always, thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you guys later.